Hey everybody, Yankee here. Recently I did a video where I ranked the manufacturers of revolvers, double action, single action revolvers, guns I consider to be great for concealed carry or open carry for self-defense. And people liked that video. And I said in that video, if you want me to do the same video with single action revolvers, let me know, because I really do like single action revolvers. I'm a big fan. I've had many of them. I still have, around a dozen of them. I like them. Of course, I don't like them as much as double action, single action, as you can tell by the numbers of them that I own. But there's also not as much variety on single action revolvers as there are double action, single action revolvers, or double action only revolvers. So today, since people requested it, I'm going to do another video where I rank revolvers, but this time it's going to be single action revolver makers. All right, now we're going to do this just like we did last time. We're going to use a colorful little scale here, and we're going to divide the sections into 3 sections: good, better, and best. You have to be good to be on the list. I'm not going to recommend crappy guns. Any gun out there that I think is subpar is not going to be on the list. Also, guns that aren't made anymore aren't going to be on the list. It has to be something that you can get now. And before we get started, I do want to say a couple of things here. First off, there will be some guns that aren't on here. Not because they're garbage, but just because I don't think they should be here, like Heritage Arms. Now, I'm not saying Heritage Arms guns aren't good for what they are, but what they are is a little single action army clone-ish gun. It's almost like a child's version of a single action army gun because they're all 22. And I'm not going to be putting 22s on this list with these other guns that are available in 357 mag, 45 Colt, 44 Magnum, etc. Those guns just don't belong on here. They're good for what they are, cheap little guns that are great to start kids out on, etc., but they don't belong on this list. Also, there's going to be no Pieta on this list. And don't get me wrong, I love Pieta. I had a Beretta Stampede myself, loved it. I regret selling it. But they're not really made anymore. Once Beretta bought Uberti, they all kind of merged together, and it's pretty much just Uberti now. So this gun is really no longer in production, so it won't be on the list, even though I love this gun. And speaking of Uberti, there are some manufacturers that also won't be on here, like EMF and some others. And it's not because I don't like EMF guns. When I chose my SAS guns, I went with 2 EMF Hartfords. So I do like them, but they're not going to be on this list. And the reason they're not going to be on here is because I just basically didn't choose them out of all the manufacturers that use Uberti guns. A lot of the major manufacturers, Cimarron, EMF, etc., they're just Ubertis. They buy the whole gun from Uberti and then they finish it how they want to finish it and put their own roll marks on it. Or they buy the parts and maybe refine them a little bit, put them together, put their own roll marks and finish on it and call it a different brand. But they're all basically Ubertis. But I did select a few models that use Uberti guns so that I can show you kind of the different variations of them. Although the variations that exist are not exactly big differences. All right, we're going to do this alphabetically once again, which means we're going to start off with BFR. Now, BFR is more of a modern style single action revolver. It is not a single action army clone or anything like that. It's more like a beefed up Ruger Blackhawk or Super Blackhawk. I love these. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I am very biased towards this gun, mainly because they make some really freaky guns. They make some that are chambered in like 30-30 and some other rifle calibers, 45-70. And that's why I love them, because they're big, beefy, single action guns that are kind of unique. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that these are super high-end single actions because they are kind of pricey, but they're not pricey because they're the most refined thing. They're pricey because they're a specialty thing. They take those big calibers, etc. But they are a well-made gun. They're very solidly in the better category, but they're not as high-end as some people think they are. They're just unique, and that's what makes me want one, and a lot of other people also. Next, we got one of those Uberti guns, Cimarron. Now, Cimarron does put their own finish on it. They finish the hammer. They do some little tweaks to it. And it's a good gun. It's a very good gun, but it's still in the good gun category. It's a very basic single action army clone, but they're a gun that no one should feel ashamed of owning because, like I said, they're a very nice gun. To make this list at all means you got to be a good quality firearm, and Cimarron is that. They are solidly in the good category. All right, next we have the ancestor of pretty much all these guns, the original, the OG single action gun, the Colt single action Army. This is the most popular single action design ever made, and a lot of people think that Colt is the finest single action you can buy, but I disagree. Oh, and I should add here that I am a little biased towards the Colts because I do own a late 30s model Colt single action Army that's a family heirloom, but I don't let that influence my decision on the modern guns. They're very good, and they're better than the Ubertis, but barely better than the Ubertis. Still, they are in the better category. Their finishing's a little better, their fine-tuning's a little better. You know, they're just a really good gun. Now, they also use some Uberti parts. There are some Colt single-action Armies out there that have Uberti barrels on them and stuff. But they are really a good gun that is a step above the Ubertis. So I'm going to put them solidly in the better category, but they're still touching the good category because of their similarities to the Ubertis, sometimes using Uberti parts, and the fact that they really haven't advanced much. They haven't done a whole lot to make these guns better. That hasn't been Colt's focus. I hope that'll change now that CZ is in charge. But like I said, this one goes in the better category. Okay, now we're to Freedom Arms, and this is a more modern style single action gun. It is a very well-made gun. Now we're actually talking about a high-end firearm when you talk about these guns. They make some of the best single action guns on the market, but unfortunately, they're priced really high because the manufacturers know how good their guns are. But they are easily in the best category. In fact, they might be the best single action guns made, so they're the first one to make it into the best category. All right, next we have Ruger, and they're a little different because they do make some very nice modern single action guns, but they also sort of make some single action Army clones. And I say sort of because they're not exactly the same as the old guns. They've changed them, they've modernized them, they've been beefed up a little bit. And they do a very good job on these guns. I think these guns are awesome. In fact, I might say that it is better to buy a Ruger single action gun than a Colt one at this time. But they're still in the better category, just like the Colt, but they're solidly in the better category because I think Ruger does do a very good job with their single action guns. And not only are they quality, but they're affordable. So like I said, right smack in the better category. All right, now we have Standard Manufacturing. Now, Standard Manufacturing makes their own guns. Standard Manufacturing started off as USFA guns, if you're familiar with those, and they really did refine and redefine the single action Army clone. In fact, other manufacturers like Uberti took some of the changes made and integrated it into the Uberti guns to modernize them a little bit. And then USFA went out of business and they were bought by Standard Manufacturing. And the guns they make now, where maybe a notch below the original guns, are still top notch. This is actually my favorite single action Army clone maker. The Standard Manufacturing guns, they are just amazing. They're super well made. The finish is beautiful. The hammer is even finished very well. They come with nice wood grips. They're just a great clone. In fact, I actually think these are better than the Colts by far. So they are also in the best category. They are my favorite. I own one of these currently and I love it. All right, next we have one that's a relative newcomer to the game, and that's Taurus. And their single action gun, I believe they call the new one the Deputy. They used to have another one back in the day that I did own, and it was a good gun. So I will say it's a good quality gun. The newer one is probably going to be just as good as the old one. I would say, I feel like I can say that with confidence. And plus, I do believe they use a lot of Uberti parts here, and they definitely use Uberti specs. So it's basically Taurus's take on an Uberti. So I'm going to put it solidly in the good category. All right, next we have Taylor. And this is another Uberti spec gun. It's a very decent quality gun. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking or anything like that, but they have some really nice models that are real nice reproductions of older guns. So they're definitely a good gun. If you want to get a good single action army gun, good single action army clone, or a good single action gun of a different type, Taylors, you can't really go wrong with them. So they're definitely solidly in the good category. And finally, we have the one major manufacturer of single action guns and their parts, and that's Uberti. Uberti pretty much sets the standard for the market. They're the ones that have the specs tuned in, and everybody uses their specifications or uses their parts, like I said. So they're definitely a good gun. However, they don't really cross into the better or the best territory, because even though they do set the groundwork for the market, they don't do a lot of extra work to modernize or refine these guns. They're just good quality reproductions, so they are solidly in the good category. So there you have it, my personal rankings of the single action manufacturers that are available on the market today that produce a good quality gun. If you own any of these guns, you got a good gun. If you have a Ruger or a BFR or a Colt, you got an even better gun. And if you've got a Freedom Arms or a standard manufacturing gun, you've got one of the best single action guns on the market.